one particular phenomenon has been the work of social genomics, human social genomics, which is basically the study of how the social environment interacts and affects and actually regulates genetic expression. And people may have heard of this idea that stress gets under the skin. And we, for a long time, didn't quite understand what that meant, but we saw the effects of stress and disadvantage, especially in certain social groups. And it turns out from this newly emerging field, which is extremely exciting, and which we do describe a little bit in this chapter, that the bodies, that we humans actually have retained an ancient response to stress or threat called the conserved transcriptional response to adversity, meaning that stress, and by this I mean not just external stress, like, unfortunately being in an accident or something like that, but actually the way we perceive our life. So our mental stress has an effect on which genes and how our genes are going to be expressed. And that means that in general, genes are upregulated, the expression is upregulated with regard to the inflammatory system, and downregulated with regard to antiviral protection. So we know that many of the disorders and diseases and problems, even mental health problems that we know of now, are related to chronic inflammatory conditions. Much of the diseases of aging are related to this. And stress plays a huge part in this. So if we're thinking about development across the lifespan, and we're thinking about what that field could offer to individuals who are helpers, including those involved in prevention in particular, we want to kind of address those parts of the human situation, like their ability to manage stress, as really important factors in regulating their health as well going forward, their health and their happiness. So in this chapter, we talk about some of the research that's been done in this field, particularly the research with adults that has come out of an organization or a consortium of researchers called the Midas Group, Midlife in the US and Midlife in Japan. It's a cross-cultural group. And they have studied the impact of this conserved response to stress in many different groups of adults, and have shown a clear indication of this particular physiological pattern of disorders as a function of people's stress levels. So this, is very, very, it seems to me, very exciting and very important for helpers to understand how they can ameliorate this particular phenomenon.
Wow, yeah. I think something interesting, that you said right now was just how it's like an ancient genetic response. Is that
Mhm,
is yeah.
mhm.
I just
It's an adaptive response to threat
Mhm.
that has been conserved over time. But the difficulty is that in ancient times, the threat was to life and limb, perhaps through wounds and wild animals and those sorts of things. And nowadays, the threats to our social status, our feelings of belonging, our feeling of self-worth, and all of those things that are more internal are also affected or they're also impacted by this phenomenon, and we suffer because of that, because of threats that are essentially mental or socially related to our environments.